Today's our Mardi Gras episode, so I dressed in theme.
Show us your tits.
I'm gonna-
I don't have any beads. I don't have any beads.
Not that kind, at least. And yeah, so we're going to be making the hand grenade, which originated in the Tropical Isle bar stand thing on Bourbon Street. Basically, this consists of vodka, gin, rum, Midori, and pineapple juice. So it's a fun little tropical drink.
Yeah, I feel like as someone who drinks pretty often, I've never had a hand grenade.
Oh,
So I'm excited. New
never
things.
had ice that was this dense.
You know, I've been to New Orleans, man, it's got to be over 100 times at this point. Somehow, I've actually never had a hand grenade. Usually, it was always just like the tourist
I love
holding
New
the
Orleans.
hand grenades.
So if I mess it up, then y'all will never know.
My favorite part of New Orleans is the food.
Oh, the food's, I mean, you know, the food in South Louisiana, unbelievable. So, man, I grew up in also South Louisiana with Chase, and you know, big part of the culture there is just all the awesome food.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, I then moved to Boston, was my first ever job post college, and my immediate thing I was kind of introduced to was just how the food just was not the same, and that was something to get used to. And honestly, moving back to Austin. Or moving to Austin, kind of back to the South, was something I came to appreciate a lot. It's like the food.
What's the food in Boston? I don't even know.
Lobster.
Lobster. I mean, it's a lot of like seafood, but it's bland, right? So like, there's a lot of seafood in South Louisiana, but it's all very seasoned very well.
Deep fried.
Yeah, deep fried, right? It's like also super unhealthy, but like
Got it.
that's part of why it was good. But yeah, no, I can always appreciate the food in New Orleans. They do it the best.
I'd never been, and then when I moved down here, it was like, well, shit. You know, it's close enough now that, you know, from Cleveland, you're going on vacation. But from here, you can drive there. And I've been there now, I think we go almost every year. And I've been told that the best time for the food is to go in months that end in ER, because that is like when the oysters are the best, because I love oysters. Thoughts?
You know, I have not been as much of a oyster connoisseur as I probably should yet. There's always times I go to restaurants where you see like all the different oysters and like where they're from.
Yeah.
I've honestly never really been able to tell the difference to it. You know, I'm of the nature of like the best oyster I'd have would be something like a fried oyster or an oyster with like a bunch of Parmesan on or something like that. But maybe that's just me.
I didn't start eating oysters until I went to Louisiana, and then again was like 4 years ago. So yeah, I agree. I mean, I never got it either, but I do now. I know what it is, and you're basically looking at a couple different things depending on what you like. It's like how briny are they, right? Like how salty are they? And then the other part of it is like the consistency of the actual oyster. Some of them can be like real dense and chewy. Other ones can be like real soft. So it's like, what are you into? And then other people get crazy and talk about like sweetness or this or that. But the two things I just mentioned, I feel like are the main things.
Yeah.
You know, it's like just because you have this big giant oyster, you're like, oh, that's going to be so good. But then it's like it's got no flavor and it's like real chewy and kind of like what I feel like people who hate oysters think of. But
That's true. They think it's like snot.
yeah,
Yeah, the charbroiled oysters, which are
those are always good.
indigenous
those
to
are-
New Orleans. That's the
they're
best
good.
way
That's
to
what I was
do
talking
it.
about, the ones with the Parmesan on them.
Dude, you are terrifying me with this drink right
Oh,
now.
it's gonna be exciting.
I legit.
I
told-
just poured in four
Look,
different
it's like some
liquors.
stuff splashing over here too. You
Oh.
can't see.
Oh man,
Oh, every time we leave, this table's a mess.
you know I consider everything I do like I'm performing, and I want to make sure I leave it all on the stage.
So, Market on the Rocks is the number one podcast. It has the most followers and the most clips. That's not true. Highest liked clips. But I'll tell you what, Two Mats, One Market is getting pretty close.
Well, that's just because you have the most episodes.
That's true. I mean, we do that one once a week.
Like you're like begging for content.
It's true. It's true. So
You're
those,
like,
but those are
would
the
you rather
two.
fight a dinosaur or a robot chicken?
But everybody's always like, dude, I love that Market on the Rocks, the one that you booze on. And I've had some other agents that are like, are we gonna booze on your podcast? I'm like,
You bring the drinks.
if you
Okay,
want to do
I gotta
that,
make sure this
we
is
have
good
to
before.
pick certain times because
All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about too. I'm watching you make this. I'm like, this
Man,
is.
I'm going to get drinks after this too, so this would be.
Hell yeah. All right.
All right.
Mardi Gras.
Was this episode
Gras.
4 or 5?
Let's see. Summer, fall, Christmas, January. Episode 5.
Episode 5. Here we go.
Five,
Whoop, whoop.
baby.
Mardi
Here we
Gras
go.
Mambo. Throw me something. Such is the deal.
Oh, I'm nervous. Oh yeah, that's gonna do it.
That's it. There we go, buddy.
That's like a shot in every sip.
Yeah.
I love
Okay.
it. My
Well, let's
kinda
kick it
drink.
off. Paul, tell us who you are. Tell us about yourself, and we'll try to keep it professional for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. I'm Paul Casisa, born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but now I call Austin, Texas home. I bleed purple and gold, big LSU fan. Grew up and still do a lot of bass fishing, really in freshwater fishing. So that's kind of me personally. And then professionally, I work at a private equity firm in Austin, Sarant Capital. I help lead out our healthcare software and services investments. I'm probably in Austin only around 40 to 50% of the time. The other 60 to 50% of the time on the road a lot. So running a lot of different conference gambits, healthcare, if for better or for worse, usually most would define it as for worse. It's a very, very fragmented space, which lends itself to having a bunch of different events with all these different, small markets with leading players, and those are all the kind of companies we look to invest in and build relationships with. So,
Do you own a sleeveless zip-up vest?
Are you a Colombian investor?
Do you have a
I do.
Patagonia zip-up?
Not a Patagonia, but I have a zip up vest though.
I've seen you.
You
in this.
better. You
Yeah.
better. Based on
It's
that
part of it.
description I just got.
That was a
But
vest industry right there.
I like to think that I'm a little more down to earth than some of the other people in private equity, and that
We can call them what they are.
you
They're
have-
bros.
they're bros, but a lot of people are robots.
Okay.
At some of the other firms. Different about like what I do is a lot of the function of like building relationships with people
Mhm.
and like finding kind of like think about it like you guys are both real estate guys. Think about finding kind of like off market deals, right?
Yeah.
And building a relationship, buying a property when it never got broker, it never came to a brokerage where it was getting shopped. That's a lot of kind of what we look like too. Is how do we truly partner with companies and build relationships with them before like they get auctioned by an investment bank? But it's different in real estate in that we're usually buying around like usually 40 to 70% of the company. So there's like a meaningful like upside if we do well. Whereas like in real estate, it'd be like you're almost always buying 100% of the company.
Right.
So or property. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's a cool game. I really enjoy it. I like to travel. Do I think it's sustainable? Probably not when I eventually have kids. I don't think I'm gonna want to be on the road that much. But we're pounding the pavement as we can
Well,
now.
At a bright young, like 16 years old, you are. That
Yeah,
should be fine.
right.
Is there like a particular type of investor that you're going after? Or is it just, you're saying pound and pavement, like when you're waking up in the morning, it's like, what are we looking for? Who are we hunting?
Yeah, my coworkers would define it as smiling, shaking hands, kissing babies.
Mhm.
But that's just those they're not on the road. I think they're a little jealous sometimes. I half joke, but I guess basically kind of what I define, who are competing against? What am I going up against? It's a lot of other firms that kind of sell a similar product, right?
Okay.
And like a lot of different private equity firms are different, and they'd have different ways of investing, different ways they're pitching groups. So I like to think about some of what I do is kind of like we have a specific product and like how our firm works and how we help entrepreneurs grow their businesses, and other people do it in other ways. And it's kind of just sales game on like what's the best fit for them.
Is there a particular type of business that you guys have an appetite for?
Yeah, really a company that is high gross margin business that is generally growing 40% or more year over year, and looking for take some chips off the table, right? So say Matt, you've created a business that's got worth like $100 million, right? And you said, all right, I know this business, I'm going to triple revenue. It's going to be worth $300 million, right? But there's also a piece of it where maybe there's like some kind of other component where you're like, hey, look, like I have like all of my net worth is built up into this business. I want to take a little chips off the table, maybe buy a lake house, a boat, hell, a yacht. Let me cash out 25%, get a $25 million check. maybe you retain another 75% of the business, but then you unlocked a little bit of your equity. So that's a big sell.
Are there particular types of businesses though? I mean, are you seeing this as
just like healthcare software companies, very broad.
You're not like buying a dealership or something, right?
No, we're not. We're not buying. That's not. And I've kind of questioned some of those businesses as well, dealerships in particular. I think a lot of that stuff's going to go D2C eventually.
Well, and again, it's just like. When you said that, I thought, okay, well, certain things I think might fit in the parameters of what you just made mention of, but I'm like, I could think of a few that check those boxes that when I say the name of the business, you're like, no. So that was one of them. Another one I feel like what about like large roofing companies?
I think about roofing companies. The margins on those businesses are smaller than what you'd see on generally a software business. So you can probably make a lot of money rolling up roofing businesses. But then I guess an interesting thing here is there's also a lot of big geographic concentration. And like I don't know a ton about the roofing industry, but what I would imagine is they do very, very well when a big storm comes by.
For sure.
And stuff. So like, are you underwriting for like weather damage? And maybe there's a bunch of different ways where you kind of try to underwrite in that
sounds like a metaphor for almost any business, though.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we do really, really well when certain things happen poorly in the economy or good in the economy, right? The big storm. Look at real estate and how well it did during COVID, right? So again, going back to, you mentioned a big storm, literally. But I think in any business, there's always anybody who's been in a space long enough will tell you what the big storm in their business is.
Absolutely. And it's like the main thesis on like what do like private equity firms do in general? It's like, how do you find a space where there are tailwinds that exist and invest behind it? The same way any kind of, real estate private equity firm would be doing it, right? Like finding areas for growth and how do you get behind that train and just ride it?
One of the things I want to ask based on what you said, what do you feel it is about tech? I think, and I'm doing this for the audience. What do you think the thing is with tech and healthcare that creates these large margins, opportunities to scale so quickly, pretty much all the metrics that you just made mention of? Why are those businesses grossing at such an exponential level versus a roofing company?
It really doesn't take much to run a software company as it does like a roofing company. So think about
hot take.
Think about no, and I'll back into this quite well. Think about, say, like your local primary care doctor is using a electronic health records. That's like where all of your medical data is being stored. If you see them looking at some kind of chart while you're talking with them, and they're asking, maybe they take your blood pressure, like, hey, are you feeling anxiety? Kind of questions like that, and they're all like filling out this like basically what you feel like is a survey. They're all putting all your medical information. So like that's called like an EHR. An EHR generally is like just a piece of software, with just basically numbers that just code exist, and then there's also like a database that like all your information goes back into. Basically, to copy and paste that and then put it into another primary care office, there's actually like very little expense to just copy and paste these lines of code versus if you have one roof on a house and say, hey, like I need to put a roof on the neighbor's house, you actually have to get all of the materials, all of the manpower to go put that roof up. So think about how a software business scales really, really quickly. It's because it's basically just like a math formula that you can just kind of copy and paste. Same way where you could just copy and paste a video from TikTok, save it in your phone, send it to your buddy, and he's watching the video. It's kind of the exact same way. There was actually not much margin or expense that kind of transferred in that process versus like a roof where like you have all the raw materials.
Yeah, but isn't something really only worth what someone's willing to pay for it?
And when you're generating a lot of cash, people are going to pay a lot of money for that product.
Yeah, but if there's enough competition, then doesn't that drive down prices?
So sometimes in healthcare, since like as I may mentioned earlier, is a very fragmented market. There's a lot of really strong, just like point solutions that are clear market leaders that really, kind of shocking, don't have a ton of competition. So they can really just charge a lot for it. And that's part of the problem in some senses of if your product is too good, you can charge a lot of money. And I think the biggest issue you kind of see it in the market is when you have softwares that can help health insurance companies underwrite coverage for like how much is this person likely to cost me, and then underwriting a premium. Like there's also some questions of ethics in some of those capacities as there's consolidation. But for the most part, I would like to believe that its quality of care is improving.
Oh, I would definitely think so. I guess what I was getting at is that it's interesting to me when you mentioned the software part, and that's why I said I'm kind of doing this for the audience. It doesn't surprise me on the software side of things that the margins are so high because I know there's very little competition, with certain programs and things like that because they're innovating new things. The healthcare thing is what kind of surprised me because I'm thinking, okay, like what about healthcare has really for not advanced, but like what about healthcare is really just dialed down to like one or two competitors where they're in a position that they can drastically increase their margins because there isn't any.
So there's a really good example. The best example that exists here is a company called Epic. You may be familiar with that. Epic is the largest EHR. Very likely. I don't know if either of you ever used MyChart? Has that been something you've had to use for your own health
Nope.
records? Interesting.
I don't go to doctors.
Well, I'm sure some of the audience has used MyChart in the past. Basically, that's like the patient engagement side of Epic. So if you ever use MyChart, you're using Epic at your local health system that you're interacting with. But basically, that's like the largest EHR that exists in the market. And
what does EHR stand for?
Electronic health records.
Okay.
And basically, in the 90s, there was legislation where any health system needed to get digital records for their patients. And the government said, hey, look, we're going to give you a bunch of money to like implement this electronic health record system. And
but isn't that still a software?
Yeah, that's a software. But like that's how it became so widely used. The government gave a bunch of stimulus to these health systems to like get the software.
So maybe
records.
I just am misunderstanding when you're mentioning that the exponential growth and all of this stuff exists in the space of, ultimately like tech and healthcare, but really it's the tech in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes more sense to me because I'm thinking like, who's making a 30% profit margin opening up like a private practice as a doctor? And I know I'm not saying they don't exist, but I would think in large, it's very difficult to, make that sort of margins unless you're doing something specialized.
Yeah, and I'd say like one place, I'll give a few case examples where like that is even possible. Is like some of the plastic surgeons doing like
That's what I was just
aesthetics.
Gonna say. Right.
A lot of that
like
crap
elective
is like,
services.
Yeah,
right?
elective services because you're not dependent on like a health insurance company paying for it because the health insurance company is just underwriting and pushing margin as hard as they can to providers of care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the things that are like exactly hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
I mean, we always talk about business on this because mainly it's real estate driven, but real estate agents are self-employed. I'm self-employed, and we have to be very entrepreneurial. And one of the things that I've been talking about for years, I feel like I want to invest in like dental clinics, man. People are living longer and your teeth are only really good for like 30, 40 years until they really start to require maintenance and stuff. And with everybody being so vain and everything along those lines, I feel like if I was like a private equity firm, I would be going after like dental practices.
There's a lot of people doing that, frankly, right now.
Tell you what I would do instead. Have y'all ever gone to a place called a Wee Whiten?
For like whitening teeth?
Yeah, and they do it with like this infrared laser.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I had it done.
I get that done once a year. As a realtor, you gotta have a happy smile.
I only had it done once. It was cool. It was. My teeth got really sensitive for like a week afterwards. But
yeah, as far as I know, there's
pain
no
is beauty.
health benefits to it. But yeah, although I've been people on the TikTok comments have suggested that I've gotten Botox. I've never gotten any form of dermatologist surgery, but
how do you do it?
That being
that glow.
I don't know. Yeah, they're suggesting on the TikTok videos that my lips are too big. That's just a promotion for me personally.
Gotcha.
But yeah, whitening the teeth once a year. Do that.
Okay. Yeah, I did it. God, it probably have to be about 7 years ago. And then I've like touch-up trays and stuff, but because people always ask me, they're like, "Your teeth are so white," and I'm never the guy that's like, "I don't know why." I hate it when people like tan or like whiten their teeth, and then when someone calls them out, they're like, "That's weird." It's like just to own it.
No, see, I usually throw them my coupon code.
There you go.
But I hate getting it done so much. I have this like irrational.
I need more pineapple. I
yeah,
can't.
go for it. Yeah.
Have to wheel me out of here.
No, I think about how Paul took an Uber here and how you said Ina's going to pick you up, and I was like, I'm driving myself to a concert right after this.
Well, those of you that
Maybe
saw,
you can hop my Uber. I'm going downtown.
Oh, well, I mean, I can just drop you.
Yeah.
well, those
Oh.
of you that saw the Christmas market on the rocks, oh my God, did I get hammered? I got hammered.
Did we publish the second half of that episode?
The Christmas one?
Some of them we stopped after the first
No,
half.
the one that didn't get published was it was on me, and I've been meaning to tell you this. I fucked up the I think it was the audio or the video, one of the two. I lost like an hour of the end. Maybe it
man.
was that one.
See, I'm aware that we only have like 12 people that actually watch a full thing, so I just need
It's the clips,
the
yeah.
clips.
The clips are golden. When I had a podcast back in the day, that was
So
was kind of what
let's
that popped
dig
off.
in on the Paulcast.
Yeah, was that what it was called? That's awesome.
Wasn't it?
It was called the podcast.
Yeah.
That's
And keep in mind, this was in the fall of 2019. So this
now,
was
was
like
it video or just like an audio podcast?
both.
Both.
I think you can still find it on Spotify, right?
And you can. And it was something where, kind of had a couple buddies that were student entrepreneurs and friends of mine that kind of wanted to start a podcast about entrepreneurship, and I did that. I think we only had like 7 or 8 episodes. It didn't really keep up with it as well as maybe it could have been something special. Would have kept up with it, but yeah, it was a neat point of time, and I feel like I was kind of ahead of the curve.
So you didn't
fall of
make the
2019.
80-20 rule.
What do you mean?
So when I started this podcast, I started looking up things that I wanted to do and like, things that were good, bad, obviously all of the not just the software, but the hardware. And one of the statistics was 80% of podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes.
That's why I do this monthly.
Yeah, I was part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, if you can make it past 10 episodes, you don't have an official podcast until you hit 30. And then after you hit 30, there's some metric of hitting 60, and then they don't say anything after that. But
And how many are you at?
we're almost at 100. I'm
Awesome.
probably I'm probably mid 80s right now.
And what do you feel like have been the top 3 things you've learned throughout doing the podcast?
I'll tell you,
both personally and professionally about making these.
that is a great question. So the number one thing that I've identified more than anything is that getting people on the podcast and having conversations with them has genuinely helped solidify my relationships, and also given me an opportunity to create a fun experience for people to kind of just sit down, because you have the headphones on. I make everybody keep their phones away from them, even if your phone's close, unless it's a super loud ringer. But who the fuck does that?
Yeah, so
You're not even going to hear it, and it's a way to just really connect with people. That's the first thing that I've learned about this. The second thing that I've learned about podcasting that's very interesting is my intentions with the podcast originally was to create content for buyers and sellers, and basically try to educate, right? And what I've identified is that the clips and the podcasts that do the best are the ones where we kind of have more fun, we keep it relaxed, we still have educational stuff, if you will, but the clips that do the best are either fun and funny or are controversial, which this podcast encompasses all of that.
I love it though.
We had one I think our first one we were talking about
we went
unsolicited
into
dick pics.
dick pics,
Yeah.
boob jobs,
Right. And
You gotta differentiate yourself, right?
well, it started because
It started from a beer.
yes, we were talking. I've talked to a lot of women who say they get unsolicited dick pics when they have listing signs out. That guys will, because their numbers are everywhere. So you got a good-looking girl on a listing, and all of a sudden she looks at her phone, and there's a text message, and she opens it up, and there's a big
They
old
got
hog.
some weirdos out there.
Oh yeah, they're out there.
Holy shit!
So these
They,
are the
they don't even hide.
That's a lot. That's
And then all of them are like, "Whoops, that was supposed to go to someone else." That's how it starts. And we talked about how this has to have worked before because,
who the hell is this working on? What? Man, someone's down bad. If this is working.
I'm a big believer. So I've already told this story, but I'll tell it to you. It's been a while. I had a buddy. He's still a good friend of mine. He's married with kids now, but back in his younger years, we would go out a lot and party, and he was the guy that we'd go out, we'd be drinking, everything would be a good time, and he was like a light switch. All of a sudden, just for no rhyme or reason, he would go from being totally cool to just hammered, head nodding in his seat and everything like that. It's like, how the fuck did that just happen? I was just talking with him like you and I are talking
Yeah.
right now.
It's like when the edible hits.
Yeah, exactly. And like 10 minutes go by. This is way before edibles. And so he's a decent looking guy. And I can remember he'd be kind of like leaning on the bar. He'd sit there for, there'd be a group of us and he'd just be chilling. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't, wasn't like doing anything that was going to get him kicked out, but he was fucked up. And we would all kind of still just hang out and there's a group of people. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a situation where we would be talking to a group of girls that we'd never met before. And he would kind of pop up, look at one of the hot girls and go, "You want to fuck?" And 60% of the time, girl would be like, "That's fucking disgusting. Who the hell is this guy? Like, who do you think you are that you can just ask me a question like that?" And he'd be like, "Hey, I'm sorry." And he'd just like brush it off. But I'm telling you right now, I can think of at least 3 times that I've watched girls. I had one girl right there who's like, "You don't have to say it like that." And she like gets on her coat and they fucking walk out.
And out of how many times? So how many times? Did
I'd say he was probably, that was happening like at least 1 out of 10. At least 1 out of 10. And but the point I'm trying to make is like, if you were to see a guy do this one time, you would be like, who the fuck does that work on? Well, I'm here to tell you, guys are doing that shit because it has worked at least once. It has worked at least once. There's a guy out there that sent a dick pic to a real estate agent who had a hot post, and they started communicating, and next thing you know, he's got her at the bar, buying her a drink, maybe even hooking up with her.
Yeah, I mean, a successful one, too. She had a listing.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Equally so.
It
You
wasn't
have
a
to,
broke agent.
Yeah.
Now, I am not suggesting that anyone do that.
Yeah. That's
So I
wild.
have a sign on 13520 Ryan Matthew Drive on 1425 Coriander
Send
Drive.
your dick pics.
Let's see what you're working with out there.
Whip those hogs out.
Because you know what's the best part is if I receive a phone number or any text from a phone number that I don't know, I take out the Forewarn app, which you have to prove you're a realtor to get.
What is that? What is it? Let's back up a little.
I should just
Forewarn
let
app?
me just show. I can just show the podcast. I mean, this is a real
See
thing.
it.
It's nothing illegal.
We're
about this app.
reiterating some information, but this was a fun one.
Yeah, I'm starting to
Yeah,
feel his hand
so-
grenade a little bit too. It's
Hell yeah.
becoming a good time.
So
Yeah, it gets better.
what we're gonna do? We're gonna put in one of ours. So what's your phone number, Paul?
225-229-1899.
Send those dick pics.
Yeah, please don't. My personal number.
Wait, 1899.
Yeah,
Damn.
that's it.
Why are you unfindable? That's crazy.
There we go.
Let me
I'll give
just-
you my work number.
Oh, you gave me a work number?
No,
too?
I'll give you it now. That was my personal.
Maybe that'll work.
737 497 1899.
This is gonna be really trash if this one doesn't work. Wow. All right, let me just put in my
I'm
own.
invisible, I guess.
Yeah, for real.
Hey,
But I would say 90% of them work. So I just put in my own number, and it's like, all right, Chase Cangelosi, age 27, says all of my former addresses.
yeah, but as a real estate
Criminal
agent,
record.
Yeah, you like that is like a best person to put in here because you're literally your contact information is blasted everywhere.
Yeah, so
By law.
same.
on a
Yeah,
lot of
Well, so the
mine
thing
too
is,
as a
so-
lender.
so I
FBI fingerprinted, background checked every single year.
That's
Yeah.
true.
2008 happens. They start doing a ton of shit, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Dodd-Frank,
Yeah.
baby.
yeah, but anyway, so I receive a text from a number I don't know. Like 90% of the time, I can find out who it was. But most of the time, it's a fake number anyway.
So Chase, you always have good real estate stories about crazy clients or crazy situations. We haven't been on for 30 days. What's happened in the last 30 days, real estate wise? With clients that you always have a good one.
Yeah. So this week, well, actually today, I think I got 2 good ones from just this week. So today I was mowing my client's yard. Basically, what happened was this seller has had
What a
his
good
house
realtor.
I know, for real. This seller has had his house on the market for a while, but he hasn't been motivated to sell it. Like, we've gotten other offers on it, and he just doesn't respond. Like, probably pretty terrible situation for an agent. But, I've gotten actually other contacts from sign calls, so I don't hate that I have him out. But he's had tenants in this house for a while. The tenants just moved out, and then he's about to put another monthly tenant in it. This guy's like obsessed with his VRBO profile and just wants to keep this place rented while it's on the market, despite that it makes it really tough to show the house.
So it's not it's not the home that he lives in.
No, so
Okay.
he has like 3-4 houses here.
And is he
but
still renting it
he
out?
relocated to Florida. So yes.
Okay. So it's an
by
income
the month.
producing property. You're mowing the lawn.
Well, hold on. So
Man,
I wasn't supposed to.
It sounds like he's.
It would
getting-
really be an
he's
income
getting some-
generator.
Yeah, he's getting some
So-
free stuff going on.
Yeah, so the tenants moved out, and an agent showed it the other day to a buyer, and the agent's like, "That yard is a nightmare." And I'm like, "You're so dramatic. Like, there's no way the yard's a complete nightmare." And so I went by yesterday, and I was like, "No, it's definitely not a nightmare." But the grass visibly has not been cut in long enough that it grew like 2 feet tall, then folded over
No.
and killed all the grass under it.
Mm.
And then many branches fell off the trees. So,
And
yeah.
it's still being rented,
Yes.
and people are renting it.
VRBO people only
Right.
see the old pictures. So yeah, I went there this morning, removed all the stakes, mowed this yard. I mean, my lawnmower was like getting caught up in the mulch that it was creating. Yeah, then edged and blowed, and I mean the place looks good now. Put some new mulch down around the trees and stuff.
What's the listing price?
$535 ish.
I got so many questions on this one.
Why would I do it?
No,
I-
nothing.
okay,
Nothing
okay.
involving
All right.
your. So, number one, I just thought about this. I've never thought about this, but as a real estate agent, if I'm trying to sell an income-producing property that currently has tenants or is, like you said, VRBOs, I just found out about Verbo. I don't know if I'm old. I don't know what it is, but I just found out about it last
It's
week.
been around longer than Airbnb.
That
so.
I learned that too. There's a
little
whole
behind.
podcast that went up yesterday with Jamie Saul with EXP Realty, and we talked all about it.
And there's
I
a whole host of other kinds of companies too.
Right,
that-
yeah,
in
I-
addition to this.
I
It's
just-
much
I-
pretty
every-
fragmented market
just for
sometimes.
some reason, Verbo has been like in my universe for the last only 2 weeks, and I've been hearing about it like crazy. And I'm like, how the fuck did I not know about this? Anyways, I'm thinking now as like a listing agent. I meet with a client who has an income producing property, whether it's through short term rental or long term rental. And the first thing that literally just snapped into my head that I never even thought about, I feel like that client's got to be a little more difficult if that property is like taking care of itself.
Yeah, so I mean, for the case of this seller, and I don't mind putting him on blast. He's never going to listen to this. So,
Well, I always say, we don't mention the name, and if the shoe fits, like, there
Yeah.
you go, man.
yeah,
Like,
because
man,
this could
get
be easily
your shit
could be
together.
anyone.
this could be someone else's
Get
story
your
too.
shit
I mean,
together. Leave my
so
man
one
on
of his
here.
properties, like in Riverside, this house is cash flowing for him. Like he's making at least like $1,500 extra a month on this, but he would rather take his equity and throw it into another form of investment right now. Just this is his choice.
Yeah, but if it's like the deal of the century, like, is this property correctly priced?
Property. So if someone else would be purchasing it, they're obviously purchasing it at a different price than what he pays on it. So it's still cash flowing for someone else if they run the Airbnb the same way. South stays 95%.
At his list price.
Yes.
Okay.
At his list price, assuming that they put down at least 15% on it. But we're even offering seller financing. But yeah, if a seller is happy with their investment so far, their motivation to sell is not
Right.
nearly as much. Which is why we had 5 offers on this property in Riverside the month of Thanksgiving, and he didn't even look at them.
Wow.
So, but then he decided recently, he's like, I'm ready to sell now. And he's like, why has the property been on the market 6 months? I'm like, that's your fault.
Yeah, right? I
But-
never, I always think about the buy side. I think about like, yeah, an income producing property for somebody who's kind of like, dude, like that just sounds like a pain in the ass.
It is. The biggest issue with properties that are occupied by like his guest, like these aren't tenants, these are guests. We can't show them with Airbnb guests.
Right.
And the other day we had someone who she's like, I really want to show my buyer this house. I really think he's going to purchase it. And I was like, let me see what we can do. We offered the guest. I told my client, I said, tell the guest I will Venmo him $100 for this 30-minute showing. The guest is like, nope. And like, we have to go with it.
Yeah.
Whereas tenants, you have it in the lease that people are allowed to enter. Should they?
Now
need.
that agent that told you that she had a super interested buyer.
She showed it today.
Okay.
Did I get an offer? No.
I was going to say broke agent. Are we talking broke agent?
No, she actually does business. We've done deals together in
Okay.
the past. I like her a lot. I could absolutely put her on this podcast. She's great.
Broke agents are like one of my favorite things to talk about. We talked about some broke agents, not individually, but in general. Have you ever heard of a real estate agent that says that they are not a multi-million dollar producer? Have you ever seen a real estate agent that says it's not the like best market or a good time to buy?
Regardless of what I earn, which I've had some years where I've been a lot better than others, I will never go post what my sales volume was that year. And I will never call myself $1 million producer.
Well, keep in mind, you
That's
don't.
dumb as hell.
How easy is it?
Keep
Million
in-
dollar producer, you just have to sell
2 houses.
Yeah, like,
Well,
this is a ridiculous stats
So,
here.
so
right?
here's my let me define a broke agent. A broke agent isn't just somebody who doesn't do a lot of real estate, right? You could do no real estate and still not act like a broke agent. Like being a broke agent is it's a vibe. It's its own riz. like it's basically bullshitting or embellish. You could be a multi-million dollar producer and still act what I would consider to be like a broke agent.
It's interesting. It's really similar in my world where like you're kind of a bullshit banker, which
Yeah.
would be somebody who basically lives in a small town, maybe had some kind of financial analyst job at some point in some company, and now he's telling all his buddies at the bar that like, oh, I can sell your company.
Right.
And in reality, he's actually getting the business when he sells it is probably getting 20 to maybe even 40% discount on what the market would actually bring if he chose the right banker, which is interesting. Kind of parallel to some of this, question for you guys. Is there any kind of proliferation you're seeing across the market where sellers are willing to do more of the seller financing now because interest rates are high and there's legitimate return from seller financing?
I'll take this one on. In a perfect world, nobody would be seller financing, in my opinion. Instead of, the seller gets the opportunity to receive some interest on, the property that they're selling over time, but then they still only get paid in installments every month. You still have to hunt down the new owner every month to get paid unless you have, them on auto withdrawal or something. So I don't think any seller really wants to be a seller financing seller, but desperate times come from desperate measures, and or maybe that's the opposite. Desperate times count for desperate measures. Sure. And I think it's sellers are like, all right, what are our alternative strategies to get this property sold? What else can we do? We've tried offering a buy down on the interest rate. We've tried offering this and that. Now let's sell a property to someone who won't qualify for a loan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll echo the same thing, and I think the only piece that you missed was it's not about the not qualify. I mean, at the end of the day, seller financing, it only makes sense if you're selling your property for more than what the market is, basically going to dictate. Because if you can't sell your property, there's only one reason. It's because you're overpriced.
Yeah.
So typically the only time I see seller financing is when a seller is selling a home at what I would consider to be like a future value. And now you have to find a buyer who sees value in buying something that isn't worth what it's worth today, but might be worth what it's worth tomorrow. And the only reason that they see value in that is because they can't go out and buy a home today. So it's literally finding two people, like an analogy is like, you got to find the one girl who's like, I don't know, into getting slapped around, and got to find the one guy who's like,
slapping.
Yeah, like slapping
But
women.
Matt, if someone's buying the property, say it's like an investor that's just trying to lever up to the roof, and the idea here is a seller is not as sophisticated at understanding existing debt covenants that a buyer has than a bank would. So maybe someone's trying to do a bunch of seller financing to a bunch of properties, and like their debt service coverage ratio on these properties is like very bad, and they're then putting the sellers in a really tough position. But they're doing that, and the seller never knows it. So how much is that actually happening?
It's not.
Yeah. So people
It's
are usually knowing that what's going on. Like,
Well, it's not that they're knowing.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't even have to know. At the end of the day, I mean, with my business, for example, we're doing. For the majority of my business, 90% of my business is selling paper to Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason that they're able to do it is because they're a freight train, right? They're making what an individual seller would consider like, this isn't even worth the risk. Well, if you multiply that by millions and millions and millions of transactions, it's big money. So as a private seller, for you to offer the same, that we talked about competition, to offer the same sort of terms and arrangements that are available to lenders like myself who are going direct to the well, you're never going to compete with that. And therefore, the margins that you're making on one property versus what Fannie and Freddie are making on literally millions of properties, like why do you want to make pennies on the dollar, right? So the only way as a seller to do seller financing is you're finding, I'm telling you, the only way it makes sense is you are selling your property
At a premium.
at a premium.
Yes.
And why would anybody buy the house at a premium?
They can't get a loan.
Bingo. I mean, this concept of seller financing is not, it is very, very digestible. There's nothing complex about it. I love it when people are like, I'm seeking seller financing. And I'm like, why? Is it because you're broke? Like, what's the deal? And I've literally talked, I'd say 90% of them are like, yeah, I can't get a loan. And then 10% of them think they're going to get a better deal because then they're going to get the belly to belly with the seller and somehow like pull the, so to your point, like, are you seeing that? If you're some great negotiator and you're going to, but most people who are willing to do seller financing are already hip to the game.
So I'm gonna counter that in the sense of saying, hey, look, seller financing on a deal that is listed, generally, I completely agree with you. If it's an off-market deal and there's some seller financing going on, and the other party is not being advised by a broker saying, hey, look, this is what it's actually worth, they could potentially be getting ripped off. And then using seller financing is an instrument that puts leverage for the buyer.
Well, keep in mind, the only way that you're able to do seller financing is if you have a paid-off home.
Yes. I'm talking about like unsophisticated, retired landlords.
But we do wraps.
Yeah, wraps and sub-twos. But, I mean, we could go on for days about that. I mean, those are gray areas that I feel like we have crushed to the fucking moon about.
Sub-2 is still a gray area, but...
yeah. So... I mean, but again, we're talking about needle and haystack type shit. Like, and this is what going back to, and one of the things I always like to preface when I say things, it's like now I'm speaking to just my own personal business. I would rather make $5 on 500 transactions than like $500 on one. Yeah. And so that's just how I operate. That's just me personally. But sure, I mean, I know bird dogs out there and stuff that are doing these off market things, and they're cracking people, and at the end of the day, some of it, in my opinion, is a gray area, and others are just good negotiating. But
it absolutely is a gray area.
I feel like
it absolutely is.
Same people are just, I mean, they're just, if they're getting a great deal, it's because they negotiated a great deal. They could have probably done that in cash as well and said, hey, seller, I want to offer you half of your market value in cash.
It's the same way in my world.
It's just the seller is incompetent and doesn't know where their house is worth.
And if somebody's done good by themselves and paying off their home in full and is in a position to seller finance, there's only two types of people that have paid off homes, in my opinion. There are people that bought it in cash, or there's people that fucking blood, sweat, and tears did all the way to the end. And if somebody bought it in cash, they're savvy enough that they're not going to get one pulled on them. And if they blood, sweat, and tears did for 30 plus years and paid their house off, fuck you, man. If you're going to go after that person, you're a piece of shit. I'll just say it. Like, that's just not cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, you need to, like, pat them on the back and give them $10,000 over asking. But, like, there are people that go after those people. They're like, find Mildred.
Yeah.
Find Mildred. That's 65, 70 plus years old, and her husband died, and the life insurance policy paid it off, and go tell her that the $50,000 house that she bought with her husband 45 years ago is now only worth $100,000.
It's really shitty, and like that same shit happens with private companies as well.
But you're dealing with businesses now. And I think it's totally different.
Well, I would say there's still like Mildred still exists.
Yeah, but Mildred still needs to live in a house.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Like you're missing a layer that I'm trying to touch on. Like
where it's like there's some ethical standards and like basic necessities.
Correct. Like
versus
if you're going to go after Mildred's business that she never like started or ran or anything, that's just an equity source that she has. And like I get it. Maybe that's also not best practices, but like it's still not going after.
As taking someone's home.
Yeah.
I don't know. I took an old man's home,
but you still own it.
No, but there was
But I gave him 5 years of free rent. Yeah. But I took it at a half of market value price. But there was someone else who was under contract to buy it for less than my price and was still going to charge him rent.
I'm literally turning the air on. I'm turning the air on.
Oh, thank God. We only got like 8 minutes left. I got to go see the Eagles.
Oh, that's right. So, are you serious? 8 minutes?
Yeah. We're gonna sweat it out, blood, sweat, and tears.
Sweat it out. For
Let's
8
get
minutes.
like 10 clips in
Let's
here.
talk about that.
Ask me about real estate.
Eagles.
Oh, great.
Oh, ask you about real estate? All right. Well, the first thing that we've been chatting a lot about in regards to real estate for January has been we've been seeing an uptick in the market. Why do you think that is?
Ooh. Well, according to nationwide surveys, we have the most pent-up buyer demand here. According to, we've had a certain number of houses on average that have sold each year, and then last year we had significantly less. We have a lot more buyers that are ready to buy a house, but they've been holding off for the last year or so.
So they're just over it?
And what I've noticed is a lot of mine are saying, "I'm over it. Let's just buy the house." A lot are saying, "Oh, we're preparing for this huge influx of other buyers. Let me get ahead of it." Other ones have finally seen, oh, a lot of homes have sold for really good prices lately because sellers have been desperate. And now we have all of these homes that have been on the market for a while. Let's try lowballing them. And I would say also, I've been noticing a lot of agents have been posting properties with list prices that are aggressive. They're fairly low. They're trying to get interest right out the gate.
Generate leads and stuff.
So I've been noticing a lot of that as well, which of course sparks, buyers' interest. They're like, "Ooh, there's this house in this neighborhood where all the houses are 600,000. This one's listed for 410. Why?"
So who seems to be the most successful of your buyers and or sellers over the last 60 days? And by successful, I mean like people that are going out saying, "Here's what I want to do," and accomplishing their goals, whether it be through selling or buying.
Successful in what regard?
Well, so I'll give you an unsuccessful story.
Right.
Somebody who's like, "I want to buy. Here are the parameters that I'm looking for." They give you properties that they want to write offers on, and they just can't seem to get under contract. Versus the buyer that says, "Here are my parameters. Here's what I'm looking to do," and they're more successful in obtaining what they want.
I would say, gosh, probably I'm not still a question that I'm not sure I'm totally grasping of what the question is. But
I mean,
like, am I supposed to describe the buyer's
yeah, what
criteria?
Yeah, well, no, just like what are so what buyers are you dealing with right now? What are their attitudes like? What are the ones that are successful, the ones that are going out and saying, "Okay, I'm ready to buy," because you're telling me, because you literally just told me the reason why the business is taking off. You gave me 4 things that literally don't even jive. And I get it because our buyers are kind of like all over the place.
Mhm.
So you got certain buyers that are like, "I want to get out before the herd."
Yeah.
You got other buyers that want to get out because they think that they can lowball.
Mhm.
Right? You got other ones that think they
got
can
you.
get out. So which ones are seeing the most success?
The ones who are still reasonable, who are not looking at lowballing tremendously.
Okay,
'Cause
so
while I've written plenty of lowball offers, most of them are not getting accepted. I want to
Some
give
of them
people a
are-
chance.
Are they
And
getting accepted sometimes?
for other agents, I haven't had any of my lowballs get accepted because they're very low. Like if someone's coming out the gate writing an offer at 60% of list price, like
Holy shit!
I don't get their hopes up.
That's
so
absurd.
going back to like your recipe. So the guy who's coming off the fence because he thinks that there is an opportunity for a deal, even though you've got yourself another buyer, it's not really a closed transaction per se because it's maybe still just like a tire kicker.
Yeah, you get a lot of tire kickers.
Then you got the person who says, "Let's get in before everybody else gets in." Is that buyer coming in and creating more of a success story than the first?
Yeah, because that second buyer is probably making more offers on more properties. They're okay with walking from the ones that they don't,
And then the
love.
third one, you said it looks like there's more properties that are currently on the market, aggressively listed. Is that one, 2, or 3? Because we know number 3, which is the shittiest one, is the guy like, "I'm gonna get a deal," and then we know number 2, who's like, "I want to get out in front of the herd." You said that one's pretty good. What about the guy who's like, "I'm noticing that there's a lot more properties out there. I want to take a peek."
Those are generally, from my experience, and I think everyone could have a different experience. Those are the ones that are usually the home buyers that know they're going to be buying eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying, "Oh, well, this looks like a great opportunity to slide in right now." Those are the people I want to work with.
So the prime buyer right now, based on what you've told me, and I think this is interesting because I, after hearing you, think you're onto something. because I actually now am identifying a few buyers I'm dealing with, and I'm kind of wondering why they're finally off the fence. And I think you're right. I think there's buyers that are out there right now that are like, we've got to do this before shit gets crazy. And those are the ones that are actually getting under contract. Because I mean, we deal hand in hand. Like I have the pre-approvals of other buyers that are like, I'm going to get, well, the deals are still there. Well, guess what? Yeah, you're pre-approved and Chase is running you around and showing you homes. But like, we don't get fucking paid until you like get an accepted contract. Right. So like pre-approved buyers is the first step. But like, I've had pre-approved buyers that haven't done anything for 3 years. Like, I still haven't seen any profitability. So I think you're right. I think the one that's like, let's get in before shit gets crazy, I like that buyer.
Also, this is something that I just thought of, and this will make a great clip. So let's make sure I'm lined up. So I'm not sure if it's just me or if people in general don't listen to the advice of a realtor for about a year. Because I mean, look, in 2021, everyone was like, hey, you own a house, you should consider selling it. This is going to be the best time to sell it ever. Then maybe in mid-2022, as the market began to fall, I finally started getting all these calls from these sellers that I was pitching to a year before, and they're like, yeah, we're ready to sell. We want to get top dollar, multiple offers on our house. And I was like, well, we're going to try our best. I mean, we'll see what can happen.
Basically, it's just someone trying to curve interest rates.
And so... we'll come back to that. And then starting when the market began to turn in 2022, agents started hitting really hard. Like, hey, that's a great time to buy, refinance later. And I feel like people are finally catching on to that. Here we are in 2024.
I have a theory about this, and it all starts with the term marry the house, date the rate, right? Now, have you ever heard that?
No.
Corny bullshit.
See?
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Get on social media.
So check this out. Isn't that crazy? Because here's my point. I got one of my best friends in Cleveland. He's a small business owner. Shout out to Mike Dewar at Footprinting. They've been running this business now for, it's a family-owned business, but he's been running it for over 10 years, I believe. And he calls me up one day, right? And he says, Matt, dude, I heard the best line the other day on the internet about your business because rates are going up, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, what is it? He goes, marry the house, date the rate. And I literally said, you're fucking joking, right? And he's like, no, dude, isn't that good? And I said, I feel like I'm literally being like trolled right now.
Am I on a radio show?
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, what are you talking about? I think it's genius. I said, no, it's not about it like being genius. It's about the fact that like we as a real estate community have been saying this for
a year
probably
and a half.
when he said it's like probably 6 to 7 months. And Mike D's not like some old dude. Like dude's online, he's marketing his company, he's on social media, like he's not some like grandpa, right? He's my age, like he gets it. And I'm shocked that you're just now hearing about this. And and from that point on, I started to monitor the lag between like general public in terms of what we were saying and what the general public finally like is willing to like eat, right? Because at first I thought they just don't believe us because they think we want to sell homes. No, they literally are not hearing us. It's not a situation of like, oh yeah, that's what Chase would say. He wants to sell a home.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's almost like, and I heard another statistic about just marketing in general that like someone has to hear something, like something
3 times.
I think it's even a higher number, but quite a few times before they go, oh, hey, you know, like that's why commercials just like, how many times have you watched a football game and like the same commercial gets just like beat into your fucking head like 6 or 7 times in one game? But then you leave and you're like, man, that commercial was so annoying, but you remember it.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to get really excited when like the exact same commercial would play twice in a row, which I thought like, I don't know, the station didn't have enough sponsors. So
Sing the commercial, do it. What was the commercial? Sing.
Oh, it's probably all the injury attorney.
It was
commercials,
probably
huh?
the
444.
No, it's probably I have a structured settlement and I need cash now. Call JG Wentworth 877 cash now. 877 cash now. 877 cash now.
That is exactly what I was hoping for.
But
I
if
love
you
you.
see the same commercial twice, I was like, oh, this is so funny. Like they messed up. No, they wanted us to know.
Yeah.
They wanted to blast that Burger King ad in our face twice.
Yep.
Find out how small that man's hands were compared to his really big Whopper,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to the Whopper that he sent to the agent's office sign.
So I know you got to go to the Eagles concert, which is Steely Dan too. Dude, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I'm super fucking jealous. It's like totally things I'm into. The question that I have, which I think we're all wondering, give me your favorite Eagles song. All right, you can give me 3 if it's that
So
hard.
put me on the highway
Nice.
and show me a sign and take it to the limit one more time. Yeah, probably Take It to Limit, Desperado, Seven Bridges Road.
Yeah, oh yeah. that's a
But
good
they
one.
also do Don Henley's hits. We'll hear like Boys of Summer. They do Joe Walsh's hits. We'll hear like Rocky Mountain Way.
Fucking jealous, man.
Oh, it's going to be great. For anyone listening, I've been watching these tickets, waiting for someone to resell it for a price that was not going to be over $700 for a while. And I snagged one for $300 after fees,
Well,
Oh,
do you,
yeah.
which still feels like a lot.
so do you want to wrap it up? I mean, I'm down to chill, but you got places to be and
I
Eagles
mean-
to see.
Y'all can chill if y'all want.
I guess we got a counter full of booze and do one more grenade and we'll make it the Paulcast.
Yeah.
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 I'm probably gonna have to bounce alongside
we go.
alongside Chase as well.
All right, so give us an outro. Do you want the people to find you? I guess to start.
Yeah.
What do
So
you-
at the end
what
of
do you-
every
what do you mean by that?
podcast,
Well, everyone's already got
We
my
said,
work
like-
phone number and my personal.
we're gonna
number.
Yeah,
have
but it's
you-
not on forewarn.
we're gonna have you look into the camera, tell us who you are, what you do, and what you want the people to know.
Yeah, I'm Paul Casisa. That's what you want to know about me. I really enjoy living in Austin. I think it's an awesome place to be, and anybody that's not here, I would encourage you to move here and find a place to live.
There you go. Well, you know what I have to say? You can spend all your time making money, and you can spend all your love making time. But if it all fell to pieces tomorrow, would you still be mine?
That's a great ending.
There it is. The Eagles, baby.
Woo.
Don Henley.
And I am desperado for some more clients
And,
and some money.
throw me something, Mister. This is we can't remember or can't forget. This is the
Ooh.
Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah, let me
episode.
show my tits.
Oh yeah.
We're on Market on the Rack.
It is like the fucking sauna. There it is. Get that man some beads. All right, gentlemen.
That's for your Ohio
I'm
people.
fucking dying in here.
God.
I don't think it's been this
We got the sauna in here.